Hello, everyone. I hope you are having a calm and quiet moment today. Take a slow breath and allow your mind to relax for a moment. Have you ever listened to a native speaker and felt like everything was too fast and unclear? Like you knew the words, but you still could not understand the sentence? You try to listen carefully. You focus on every sound, but the words seem to disappear. They connect too quickly. They change their shape, and before you can understand, the sentence is already gone. And in that moment, you may feel confused. Why is this so difficult? Why can I understand slow English, but not real conversation? Many learners experience this. They study grammar. They learn vocabulary. They practice listening. But when they hear native speakers, everything feels different. Too fast, too connected, too unfamiliar. And this creates frustration because you feel like you have learned a lot, but your understanding does not match your effort. Some people believe the answer is simple. They think native speakers talk too fast, but speed is not the real problem. The real problem is how the language sounds in real situations. When native speakers talk, they do not speak word by word. They connect sounds. They reduce words. They change pronunciation. This is natural speech, but many learners study English in a different way. They learn clear words, separated, slow, easy to recognize. So when they hear real English, their brain becomes confused because it does not match what they learned. Another important idea is pattern familiarity. When you learn English, you learn words and rules, but real understanding comes from patterns, how words connect, how sentences flow. And if you have not heard these patterns enough, your brain cannot recognize them quickly. So even if you know the words, you cannot understand the sentence. Another key point is listening speed. Your brain needs time to process language. If it is not familiar with the patterns, it cannot keep up, so it falls behind. And when it falls behind, you lose the meaning. This is why everything feels too fast. Not because it is impossible, but because your brain is not ready yet. Another important idea is expectation. Many learners expect to understand everything. They want to catch every word. But in real conversation, this is not necessary. Even native speakers do not focus on every word. They focus on meaning. They follow the flow. But learners often try to control everything. And this creates pressure. And when pressure increases, understanding becomes harder. Another key point is lack of exposure. Understanding native speech requires repeated listening, not just once, not just a few times, but many times. Because your brain needs to become familiar with how real English sounds. And without this familiarity, everything feels new. Everything feels difficult. At this point, you may begin to see something clearly. The problem is not your ability. The problem is the gap between how you learned and how real English is used. And when you understand this, something begins to change. Instead of feeling frustrated, you begin to see the path forward. You begin to understand what your brain really needs: more exposure, more repetition, more real listening experience. But there is still something important we need to understand. How can we train our brain to understand real English more naturally? How can we close this gap between learning and real conversation? And this is where the story begins to go deeper. From confusion to clarity, Now that we understand why native speech feels difficult, we can begin to explore how to train your brain to understand it more naturally. The goal is not to catch every word. The goal is to follow the flow of meaning. The first step is to change how you listen. Many learners try to listen word by word. They try to catch every sound. But real conversation does not work this way. Words connect. Sounds change. So instead of listening for each word, listen for the overall meaning. Focus on the message. This reduces pressure. And when pressure is reduced, your brain can process faster. The second step is to get used to connected speech. Native speakers do not separate words clearly. They link sounds together. For example, words blend. Sounds disappear. And this makes the sentence sound different from what you learned. So you need to hear these patterns again and again. Repeated listening helps your brain recognize these changes. And recognition makes understanding easier. The third step is to slow down the input at first. If the speed is too fast, your brain cannot follow. So you can use slightly slower audio. Not too slow, but slow enough to understand the flow. As your brain becomes familiar, you can return to normal speed. This builds your ability step by step. The fourth step is to repeat the same material. Do not change content too quickly. Stay with one audio. Listen many times. Each time you will understand more. At first it feels unclear, but slowly it becomes familiar. And familiarity reduces difficulty. The fifth step is to listen actively and passively. Active listening means full focus. Passive listening means relaxed exposure. Both are important. Active listening builds understanding. Passive listening builds familiarity. Together, they create balance. The sixth step is to notice patterns, not words. Language is built on patterns, common phrases, common structures. When you hear these patterns repeatedly, your brain stores them as a whole. And when your brain stores patterns, it can recognize them faster. This makes real conversation easier to follow. The seventh step is to accept partial understanding. You do not need to understand everything. Even understanding 50% is enough, because your brain will fill the rest over time. When you accept this, your mind becomes relaxed, and relaxed listening is more effective. The eighth step is to stop translating. Translation slows you down. It creates delay. Instead of translating, try to connect sound directly to meaning. This takes time, but it becomes easier with repetition. Another important idea is patience. Understanding natural speech takes time. It does not happen quickly. But with consistent exposure, your brain adapts. It becomes faster. It becomes more flexible. Another key point is trusting your process. You may feel like you are not improving, but something is happening inside your brain. Patterns are forming. Connections are growing. And one day, you notice a change. You understand more than before. You follow conversations more easily. And this is the result of repetition. At this point, you may begin to feel more confident. You are no longer completely lost. You begin to catch meaning. And this is progress. But there is still one important part left. How do we make this ability stable? How do we continue improving until understanding feels natural? And this is where the story moves forward. From training your brain to transforming your listening ability. So now we come to the final part of this story. How can you continue improving until understanding native speakers feels natural and easy? Because learning the reason is only the beginning. The real change happens when your listening becomes stable. The first step is to stay with real English. Do not avoid natural speech. Do not stay only with slow and clear audio. You need to experience real conversation. At first, it feels difficult, but over time, your brain begins to adapt. And this adaptation is the key. The second step is to build tolerance for uncertainty. You will not understand everything. There will always be unclear parts. This is normal. So instead of feeling frustrated, accept it. Focus on what you can understand. Let the rest go. This reduces pressure. And when pressure is reduced, your understanding improves. The third step is to continue repeated exposure. Listening once is not enough. Listening twice is not enough. You need many repetitions. Each time your brain becomes more familiar. Each time your understanding grows. And slowly something changes. The fourth step is to notice progress, even if it is small. At first, you may understand very little, but then you begin to catch words, then phrases, then full ideas. This progress is gradual, but it is real. When you notice it, you feel encouraged, and encouragement helps you continue. The fifth step is to make listening part of your life. Do not treat it as something separate. Let it exist in your daily routine. While walking, while resting, create small moments of exposure. This builds familiarity over time. The sixth step is to stay patient with yourself. You are not slow. You are not behind. You are learning. And learning takes time. Every time you listen, something is happening. Even if you do not notice it immediately, your brain is adjusting. It is learning to recognize patterns. It is becoming faster. The seventh step is to trust natural growth. You do not need to force understanding. You do not need to control everything. Give your brain input. Give it repetition. Give it time. And allow it to grow. Another important idea is letting go of perfection. You do not need perfect understanding. You only need enough understanding, because meaning is more important than accuracy. Another key point is consistency. Listening a little every day is more powerful than listening a lot once, because your brain learns through repeated exposure. And repeated exposure creates familiarity. And familiarity creates understanding. Over time, something begins to change. You are no longer completely lost. You begin to follow conversations. You understand without translating. And in that moment, you realize something important. Native speech is no longer impossible. It is becoming natural. And this is the result of everything you have done. Not one big effort, but many small and consistent steps. So if you remember one thing from this story, remember this. Understanding native speakers is not about talent. It is about exposure. It is about repetition. It is about patience. Stay with the language. Listen again and again. Allow your brain to adapt. And over time, understanding will come. Thank you for spending this time with the story. And as always, see you in the next story.